Well, a whistleblower has uncovered explosive allegations about Victoria's hotel quarantine program, revealing private security guards were hired via WhatsApp. They were given no training and they were told to bring their own masks, gloves and hand sanitizer. The Stanford Plaza is at the centre of the hotel quarantine scandal, with one infected security guard linked to more than 35 cases. Joining me now, former opposition leader and now MP for Bulleen, Matthew Guy. Matthew, I've been really keen to get you on the show to talk about the way in which the Victorian Labor government has handled this particular crisis. Hiring security guards via WhatsApp, you can't make this stuff up.
No, you can't make this stuff up, Peter. I mean, the situation in Melbourne in particular is chaotic. And that's because we've had tough-talking Dan Andrews for the last few months lecturing the rest of the nation about what they should be doing. And he's been very good at lecturing everyone and having these press conferences in melodramatic fashion, saying how lives are at stake if we don't do this and lives are at stake if we don't do that. And yet the only people who haven't been following up the tough talking has been him and his government. I mean, as you said, you couldn't make it up that the government would allow a contractor to subcontract, then hire by WhatsApp. I mean, you look at other governments around Australia. They brought in the ADF, who have been managing the hotel security, not necessarily themselves, but certainly overseeing it. In Melbourne, we've had a situation where the people that the Labor government hired have either allowed groups to go down to 7-Eleven, allow them to go to the DFO. These people are potentially, and now as we've found dreadfully, have been carriers of COVID-19 and have spread it across Melbourne. And that's why this second wave is so horrendous, because we don't know where it is and we don't know where it's been. And this is because of the Labor government's ludicrous ideological decision not to bring in the ADF.
Matthew, you can understand the frustration from Victorians right now. They did the right thing. You know, we're in Queensland, we've done the right thing, and, you know, to the everlasting credit of Anastasia Palaszczuk, she's kept the borders closed, and that has meant that, you know, Queensland has escaped this second wave. But Victorians did the right thing. It was the government that have let Victorians down. You can understand why they're pretty angry. Yeah,
I can understand it because I'm one of them. And where I am in the city of Manningham, I mean, we're all now back to homeschooling. Our kids are back being taught at home when they should be at school. If, you know, we followed the rules. The majority of the 5.2 million people in Metropolitan Melbourne followed the rules. Who didn't follow up their rhetoric was the state government. If they'd actually had people who were competent, and more the point, the buck stops with them as a government to make sure you've got the right procedures in place. Peter, every other government in Australia did this. Every other government got this right except one. The tough talking, tough lecturing Premier of Victoria, who most people in the National Cabinet walked away and said, this guy's presiding over Little Italy. And sadly, that's what we've become. And people will be very sick as a result of this. And yet his response is, well, we have an inquiry. Well, we've got an inquiry. I can't answer your questions because we have an inquiry underway. That's typical of this man in how he will deflect attention from the reality and indeed what people need to know. Why were these people employed? And there's a question, Peter, that we still don't know. Are these security guards the same firm still guarding hotel quarantine? Are they still guarding other aspects of coronavirus, people carrying that virus around Melbourne? I think you'll find the answer is yes. Tough talking Daniel Andrews will not even answer those questions. There's 5.2 million Melburnians, a fifth of the country, in lockdown tonight, facing heavier lockdown, facing compulsory masks from midnight, which I don't disagree with, but we have to do it. The question is, why do we have to do it? Because the Victorian government couldn't follow through with their own tough talking rhetoric. It beggars belief. It beggars belief.
Matthew, you went head-to-head with this bloke at the last election, so it's fair to say that you know his personality pretty well. We saw a news poll earlier in the week where basically Victorian Labor voters said that they would still stick with Daniel Andrews despite the fact that he's botched this up completely. Of course, coalition voters had already made their mind up and they'd basically said he'd stuffed it up. What does this bloke need to do? Does he need to rob a bank? I mean, what does he need to do to fall out of favour with Labor voters?
This guy is a cross between Gough Whitlam and Paul Keating on the level of beatification that the left have of leaders, political leaders. They see this guy as the bulwark against the federal Liberal government, the New South Wales coalition government, every other supposed centre-right, right-wing thinker, anyone who doesn't agree with the hard left in Australia, they see him. And they will stand by. You see it on social media. They flood social media. The union movement down here had a campaign in the Rudd election of 07 where they publicly said, we're going to flood social media. And now they do. They flood it with people with 5 accounts. Union movements come to work on late shift in Victoria. They come in with their 5 accounts and flood it all and abuse everyone. And it looks like that Labor's got a lot of support on social media. It's the same people with 5, 6, 7, 8, maybe more accounts. That's how they roll in Victoria. See, Victoria, Peter, doesn't have a democracy. We don't have a government. What we have is a Labor Party, the Labor branch down here, the socialist left of Labor, who have taken over the operation of government in Victoria. It's not a position that's not politicised in government. Now, you'd say, well, your viewers might say, a Liberal would say that. You don't understand the extent of the politicisation in this state. The Deputy Chief Health Officer was tweeting about Captain Cook in the middle of a pandemic. I mean, you know, the extent of the socialist left takeover of government down here, and it's very deliberate. And Daniel Andrews at the centre of it. This guy has no emotion. This guy could not care less about anything except himself. And all of this inquiry, which is designed to exonerate him, it's designed to get the media off his tail, get the public off his tail. And you notice from his press conferences, they're all melodramatic about, well, we've got to save lives. Well, we do. But we wouldn't have to if his government had actually done the right thing and not stuffed up hotel quarantine guarding from the very start.
And Matthew, we haven't even talked about branch stacking and Belton Road. We'll do that next time we have a chat. Thanks for joining us tonight.
I haven't even touched on those, but thanks for your time.
Exactly. Good to see you, Matthew Guy there from Melbourne.